intern, and I was just like, and I always brush between when I consume anything now because my dentist destroyed my mouth. And she's like, "What's with the toothbrush?" So we actually brought it live on the show with its own little camera for the huddle earlier. So anyways, everybody, this is Grant and Jacki Roach and Jarrett Carpenter. Hello. With Not Crypto Bros. Aussie is delayed, so he'll be back here or shortly. We'll see. But that's okay because I have seen everyone and their cousin do an NFT NYC summary. So we're just going to knock 3 of them out right here with the 3 of us. And I hope that Jacki's here. Jacki's going to actually talk to us because we got to talking at Bryant Park a little bit about women in tech. And I think this would be a great moment to touch more on that and your observations. But I'm sure that you have observations from NFTNYC that overlap. She's going, yes. She's like rocking, like, I'm ready. Let's talk about this. So, Jarrett, let's start with you real quick. NFT NYC.
Sure.
You did a post. What are some of your summaries? I didn't watch the whole thing. Forgive me.
It's cool. It's cool. Yeah. First of all, Brian, Allison, welcome. We are back. It is Tuesday. For you guys across the pond, it is Tuesday evening. So I hope you're having a lovely evening. Jacki, great to see you again on the show. And sorry, before we turned on the press play button, I've just been lost in LinkedIn and Twitter because since NFT NYC, I have so many new connections.
Yeah.
And I'm just connecting people. And I was just, when you guys were talking there at the end, I was sending Giovanni a message. Giovanni is someone
DeSantis?
who's and he's in
not
crypto.
The Florida DeSantis.
No, not the Florida DeSantis. He's in crypto and he's trying to get his way back to the other C of cannabis. And so we were just talking because I have a mutual connection that may be beneficial. And so I put out an episode this morning. I saw Grant had a post the other day. George had a post, which I thought was really nice that I think tagged us in. Yeah. And one of the things I guess that I'll call out, which I saw on Twitter, and it's not my organic idea, but it's something that totally aligns with me, is that NFT NYC is just a microcosm of the entire space. And there are so many people that weren't there that are deep in NFTs, but just couldn't find the time off. Maybe they're in Web 2, couldn't find the time off. I know Aussie's not with us right now because his Web 2 job, he'll be coming soon. Or they don't have the money, right? Or it's in the United States and they can't get here because getting a US visa is absolutely brutal. And it is becoming the privilege as we move forward. And so that was one of the things that I was kind of more and more attuned to, that even though this is definitely a meeting of the minds that have to do with NFTs, full projects, it was almost impossible. Hey, Aussie, how you doing? It was almost impossible that full projects were there because of the global nature of Web3. Yeah. And I just think in my life, I have so many friends, and I'm sure everyone here has friends that can't get to the United States because they don't have visas. And I hate it, and it's unfair. And that's the way the system is. And so I just wanted to call that out. That was one of the things that I think differentiated maybe some of the stuff that I was sharing, then Grant, you shared, and George shared. But I think that, and then the idea of community, and I kind of like went through my own emotions because I think it's really weird to have met, especially Grant and Aussie, and obviously Jacki, we met more recently, but I've been working with Grant for have a few minutes to pop in. What's up, Saul?
What's up, Saul? Do you know Saul, Jacki?
I don't know. Now I do. We recently connected though.
I was going to say, if you haven't, you need to connect on LinkedIn. You guys are both pretty awesome. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jarrett.
No, it's all good. I saw Saul's thing and I wanted to just shout him out. So I was going to say it's kind of surreal. Oh gosh. It's kind of surreal to have experienced NFT NYC and have met you, Grant, especially because we have been working almost since the fall of 2021 together.
Yes.
Even just in conversations. And this thing may fall on me. I'm looking at that. And then meeting you is surreal because for years I've watched videos of like gamers and they're like, oh, we've been playing Fortnite, or maybe not Fortnite, but like Call of Duty for 10 years. And then, somebody will arrange for them to meet whoever they are. Right.
Yeah.
And seeing those videos is always so weird. And then I always thought that will never be me. Right. I'll never do that. Right.
I'll never have awkward first day of school syndrome.
Yeah. Cause I'm not a gamer. I just never thought I'd be in that situation. And then all of a sudden I'm outside the Javits and Grant just like walks up to both of us. And I was like,
you both walked exactly like I predicted you would walk. That's what you said.
That's what you said. And that's what you said in your, I was listening to your live that you had on yesterday and you said that exact thing too. Yeah. So anyways, it was a real surreal moment. And I actually think the conversation that we had in Bryant Park, I'm hoping that this is a continuation of that
I hope so, too.
conversation.
Yeah.
Aussie missed out on that conversation. He was in transit, and he was also having his own Home Alone 2 moment where he was lost in New York and was freaking out. But since he didn't meet Donald Trump in the lobby, he never got good directions. So Aussie, you missed out on the Bryant Park conversation, but hopefully this conversation builds on that, because I think Jacki is someone who I want to continue to learn from and connect more with. So anyways, I'm going to pass the mic to Jacki. Jacki, welcome to Not Crypto Bros.
Thank you so much. Am I your first female guest on Not Crypto Bros?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Good.
Allison, do you know Allison Alexander?
Allison and I have an appointment next week to meet, actually. So
Very nice.
Phenomenal people. And she has a really kick butt story about how she came through. I don't want to give the whole thing away, but she came through the system up to being like a municipal leader in her village, city. Allison, I'm butchering it. Forgive me, but you're going to love, I think you're going to actually love.
Well, it was funny because I think someone must have recommended that we connect, but we had connected prior, and I had sent her a message, and my first message to her was like, oh, I see you're in ethics. Like, I don't see that word in like Web3 too much at the time. I think it was like a year ago when I had messaged her. So it's good that we're finally actually getting to have some Zoom time. But just to piggyback on some of the things Jarrett was saying. So I love New York. You know, I'm in Buffalo, so it's pretty easy for me to butcher away. She said. It's pretty easy for me to get back and forth from New York. And funny enough, my first business partner, I'll shout her out, Rachel Buchanan. We started the Alpha Drop podcast together in 2020, talking about blockchain for supply chain solutions, ethical sourcing, all that kind of stuff. We met in New York for the first time after working together for almost 2 years. So New York's like this very magical place, I guess. The Javits Center was big. That like everything was like all over the place. It was easy to get my 10,000 steps in, but it was a little confusing. Like I missed Marie Roker Jones, who's an amazing person in this space, because I couldn't find the brand stage at first. That little like that area was a little confusing where they had the vendors. There was like 3 different stages going on. I was actually really impressed by how many women I saw just all over the place, like walking through. It was probably the first conference I've been at where I really felt like there was like near equal representation on all the stages. There were plenty of women speaking. I saw tons of women speakers, and not even just that, but I saw like full female teams, talking about, I think some of the things that women are concerned about in this or just want to talk about in this industry were up on stage and highlighted. NFTNYC is a fun event because it's not as financial focused. You know, you're talking about community building and brands and some of the like, tangential things to this industry. So but overall it is, and it's so fantastic to meet people in person. Like it's, it's the best.
Oh, yeah. May down here, May Maboob, she and her marketing partner, Lindsay Poss, came to our networking event. She's done a serious fundraise and now is kind of doing a bridge fundraise right now, but she says she agrees. And May, I'd love to hear maybe just in the comments, like some of the top like female teams or female speakers that really stood out to you. It's funny. Like, I felt like I saw mostly women. Like
you totally did, Grant. I was with you all the time. 95% of the people we talked to were women.
But I mean, even on the stage, even as I went through everything, like the mental health thing, and when I went through the gamer stage, every time I walked by the gamer stage, I felt like there was a female gamer, and I took note. I was like, there's a lot of female gamer representation going on right here. Speaking of female gamers, Jacki, have you ever heard of did I ask you about Jamie McGonigal? The one who came up with the game Super Better. We'll talk about some other time. An awesome female in gaming who's doing that. But Austin, this was not only like your first crypto event, but this was your first like expo, right?
Yeah, I've never been to an expo before.
Any expo.
Any expo. unless you call like the county fair an expo.
In Montreal. Where we're milking cows. No.
Yeah, where he's selling maple syrup.
That he made. So Jacki, he lives the farm life. And Jacki doesn't know this, but like we get this like text from Austin who's like, guys, I'm seriously lost. I finally found a McDonald's. My phone is dead. And like that was it. Like he's getting mugged on the way. Austin, what were some of your observations, man?
I think the observation about women, that was massive. I think there was the amount of tangential people that weren't necessarily even leading projects, but were leading businesses, real businesses that were trying to serve Web3 and the Web3 business and the Web3 entrepreneur was incredible. We got the chance to have a conversation with a researcher who's starting research on Web3. Yeah, Kate on Web3 and how it impacts her mental health. And then we also met Lisa, who is basically building her business just serving Web3 businesses as an accountant. And and that was an incredible conversation. And it was also amazing that it was two women-led companies and women-led projects at the same time. So
and I don't recall the bookkeeper gal's name. What was her name?
That was Lisa.
Lisa. She was in her 50s, and an industry like that, someone of that age, you would just not expect them to be savvy. But she was just like, she could speak to the whole thing. She was very specific and very hopeful about her. This was her second year or so, second or third year. Right?
Well, they'd officially done their spinoff only a couple months ago, and they're an all-female account team as well. And so it was just the level of detail and the level of knowledge was incredible when we were having that conversation.
Now, Jerry, you mentioned something a second ago, and it got me thinking, and I'd like to hear from everyone, including Jacki. Do you actually think this event was representative? It's not representative of crypto at large. Jacki could speak to that, like my crypto advisor. You touch so much other stuff. But in terms of representative of the NFT community, do you actually feel this was a real microcosm? Jerry, you said that, but do you stand by that, really?
I have no idea. I have no idea, and I have no way to tell, because the NFT, like, every day there's a new NFT project, and every day, like, there's a new NFT project that dies or ceases to exist and a Discord closes. So because of that space moves so fast, I really have no idea. I felt like there was a lot more representation, and I was there with my colleague, who I think everyone here met, Christina, and it was her first like dive into Web3, and I think she's literally different now. She's like seen things she can't unsee in the Web3 community. She's used to going to like corporate partnership conferences where everyone's in like suits, and then there were people running around in fairy costumes, and she's like, that's real, and I'm like, that's very serious. So I have no idea. I guess I'm just saying that NFTs are global,
Sure.
And so this conference will always just be a small representation of the whole. And I think that's really cool. And I want to call out May's comment. She says, "Hi everyone, I attended a pre-event, See Her Impact. The project is focusing on connecting females in the industry, which was amazing. I tried to sign up for this project, but for this event, but I wasn't able essentially to go as a cisgendered male. I would not have qualified. They were looking for people who identify as queer or female."
Where is this comment?
I can see it. The
Man,
second
it's
one
not
down.
it must be showing up on your feed. Can you bring it up on the screen? I would love to hear more about this.
You just brought it up.
I didn't see the cisgender. Is that what the SI?
No. I'm saying that. I'm saying.
Oh.
I tried to sign up for it because I was going to be there on Tuesday, and
Okay.
Christina wasn't coming until later.
I see.
But because I'm a cisgendered male, I essentially couldn't go because I don't identify as queer or female. Which I thought was actually, my initial reaction was like, damn it. And then I was like, that's actually cooler. Good for them for like saying, basically, bros, you aren't allowed. We're going to have our space. We're going to have our moment. So I thought that was really cool. I would like to actually hear more about that from May another time, because I'm just curious.
May, we'll have you on and talk about this. I think it's important.
Yeah, but I thought that was interesting. And then I will say the times when we were able to sit down and talk with people, we talked to NLC in Bryant Park. This is shortly after Jacki left and Jacki
ran away home.
Jacki had to run away home, but we had a very similar conversation with NLC that we had with Jacki as far as like representation.
She brought this up, Jacki, just as you left. She started talking about this exact topic.
Yeah, and Jacki, I'll kind of share what she said, and then I want to pass you the mic. But it was like, she doesn't feel like she's taken seriously. She'll go into spaces and people are like, look at her like the plus one because she's a female, and we'll look at her like, oh, who did you come with? Not like, oh, you are a boss manager for a Web3 project. And that, on the heels of just talking with you about what we were talking about, was like, whoa. So for you, Jacki, was this your first NFT NYC?
Yes, it was my first NFT NYC.
your first crypto and Web3 conference?
No. Just I mean, I do the digital I do conferences with the Digital Assets Council of Financial Professionals, which is usually more like financial advisory, like old institutional world, I guess, kind of stuff. But yeah, but continue. Sorry.
No. I wanted to, because for me it was totally my first delve into IRL. And then the last thing I'm going to say, if we're just talking about demographic and diversity and looking at through that lens, is I was actually shocked by how many people over 55
Yes.
were like movers and shakers.
Yeah.
If you were there day one, the people on the stage, there were many people that were over 55. And I think that sometimes there's this idea that, oh, crypto is, basically 30 to 40-year-old males. And this experience totally flipped that for me, because there was a lot more female representation, a lot more queer representation, a lot more older representation in a demographic that I just thought weren't interested, aren't around this. And I guess that's because, honestly, and this is my own kind of echo chamber, they're just not in my direct networks on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on in Discord, or on YouTube. But like when you look at who was on stage and who NFTNYC really wanted to highlight, part of it was because they were kind of running it, but like they were much older gentlemen, like dudes who I would never roll up to and be like, hey, talk to me about ETH. What do you think about the new, what do you think about the new upgrade? I would never think that. But it was interesting to see that many of the people who are kind of underpinning this movement are people that totally made their money in the .com boom when they were 30 or 40 and have just stayed close to the tech evolution. So when they saw this happening 6 or 7 years, they latched on and they never let go, right? So it's interesting to see that this was still made by maybe an older generation, even though when you think about it, you think of like DeGods, right? And parties and creatives and, stuff like Igor going out to like make a mural while he's there and he's going to tokenize it and drop it tomorrow. So anyways, I just wanted to, nice. There we go. Exactly.
Ezra Igor, man. Like that's his material and I'm going to get it framed and put it up here. It's a phenomenal piece of work. Yeah,
exactly. So anyway, I was very, very impressed with the spread. There were people from all over the world, all different ages, all different size, shapes, colors, everything. I just, it was awesome. And it was kind of like everything that in my head, we hope Web3 is, but I can't tell. Jacki, is that a veneer that I saw? And am I missing something? Or, what else is going on?
I think what's interesting to me is that when I learned about blockchain and NFTs, it was under the guise of supply chain management, like blockchain as a service, blockchain as like an infrastructure. So it's interesting to me to see NFTs almost kind of niched or like pigeonholed into an arts movement or like a music movement or an entertainment movement. Because to me, NFTs are everything. They're any asset, that is physical or
always
visual.
Have a visual component,
Right. So this is, I think this is kind of the NFT movement. 2021 was like the big boom in like these projects and things like that. It was, if blockchain is the new internet, NFTs are the new email. So they're really just the thing that's carrying.
Dang! Wait, what?
Yeah,
Wait,
break that down. Break that down. I feel like you gotta puff and pass after you say something like that. Can you say that again?
I mean, I don't know that I want people like quoting this or anything, but yeah, I mean, blockchain is the new infrastructure of this new internet. And NFTs are like the new email. So they carry the data. They give you the instructions. They're the messaging system. They're the communication point. So, they tell you the next thing to do with this thing or whatever. So to me, It was never, I was actually thinking to myself at this event, and I read somebody say this, is NFTNYC going to have to rebrand itself when NFTs are no longer the word that we use? They're not going to be called NFT tickets in a few years. They'll just be tickets. Like everything's going to be an NFT soon enough. So what is NFTNYC or what is any of these, conferences really? So, but I do think there is still an interesting point of, what did happen with email? Things got centralized and then how did those companies that built around them? So if you can really think of the NFT, how you want to own it and how you want to use it in your project or with your people, it can be a really good starting point for like, how do we even build this? You know, I've seen so many NFT projects where they've launched and like they're not even using like a hardware wallet to like launch their project. You know, I mean, like
Yeah.
things are just set up wrong from the beginning. And then, you know, then people scream because they want regulation because the holders got hosed. And I mean, that those are some of the things I look for even in a project is like, how is this set up? Who's holding it? Who's your custodian? Are you an LLC? Are you registered on an exchange? Like, have you done the proper business work? And Jarrett, I think what you're speaking to is seeing like all these you know, seasoned professionals in it is that's what we're bringing to the space, is saying like, you still have to operate like a business and you have to, you know, do things within the rails in the right way. And you know, when we were all coming up just kind of like messing around, you didn't have those same structures, but you didn't have, you know, communities of thousands of people that you were responsible for. I mean, we were all talking about Wonderland time before we got on this call. I mean, you know, how does that community feel now? And not that that was an NFT, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's valid, and I've been telling Jarrett and the team, NFTs will be completely abstracted into the relevant niches. I mean, it's just going to happen. I think specifically NFTNYC will continue to hold its persona of an art gathering. I really do. I think I'm looking towards Web Summit. So an example of this, I think I might have mentioned this in the park, Web Summit Lisbon. Has been a huge web tech conference for a long time, just owning a website design company. And you pay attention to that sort of thing. And I was just looking for this September in Lisbon. And now there's an entire track for crypto and blockchain and how we're using it. An example being a major flaw for small agencies like mine is two-factoring into people's websites. And you can abstract that into a MetaMask wallet. And, you know, LastPass is kind of like trying to do that, but they just got a major hack, and that's kind of like backwards. But we're talking about issuing NFTs to clients so that they can just access their thing, and then we can access their thing. But how do we do that? And the whole wallet structure is even still in internet years archaic, right? And so there's still some problems there. So I think the conferences will develop an identity where they have the most success. And honestly, NFT NYC I think was a wild success because of its flair. You know, I didn't see a lot of architectural. Well, let me pose that as a question. I didn't see a lot of architecture, like underlying unseen tech companies there. Did you see any projects that were underlying tech? Either of you?
No, I don't think I didn't take away that was like the focus. No.
It was community, you know? And sidebar, I did want to call this out. Are either of you familiar with the Hugs project that Randy Zuckerberg did?
Yeah, I was supposed to go to that.
I missed that she was even there.
Yeah, we were supposed to go on Wednesday evening to that event. And then what just happened was it was 30 minutes away from the Javits Center by Uber at 5 p.m. And I told Christina, I said, 0 chance I'm getting in that. I don't care how cool it's going to be. That's what it says, 30 minutes. By the time we get there, it could be 6. And then, but you know, and I was like, we have to really pick our battles. So I did know about that, the Hug XYZ. The Hug whole situation is really cool. I mean, they really try to create a platform to like launch creatives and artists and give them the tools that they need. Because I think when I look at NFT NYC, I was super impressed by the organization. Now, other people disagree with me, and I've heard anecdotes that there were some things that did not go well. But to get that many people into the Javits and have things kind of move around and have a speaker on every 10 minutes and like they had it like clockwork, I was fairly impressed by that. So clearly there were like adults in the room, and I think adults now is beyond years. It's just there were people thinking about all of the different, you know, this wasn't their first rodeo, right? And I thought that was really cool. So
no worries.
I don't even know how I got there, but I did know about the Hug. I did know about Randy Zuckerberg.
I didn't know about it.
I wasn't able to get out there. If you're listening to this Hug and somehow you find this, you can have an off campus, I guess we could say.
Satellite.
A satellite event that's 30 minutes away at rush hour in Manhattan.
The exact thing happened to me. I was registered and it was so far away and there was no way I was going to make it in time. And I had to, and I will say the first day at NFTNYC, they had speakers like right till 6:15 p.m. I mean, and there was someone I had to watch at the end. I can't remember what talk it was, but that's why I didn't make it to the event either. So
yeah,
it was like rush hour traffic at the time. Yeah.
So I'm super curious, Jackie. You talk about blockchain. You came through supply chain, and you are working on a project. Can we talk about carbon credits? Is that something? Is that a project we can talk about?
Um, that's as far as I can talk about it. I mean, we can talk about, what carbon credits are. And I mean, essentially, it's just like another output for, blockchain, another way that blockchain can solve a problem that's happening, whether it comes to transparency and things like that. But do you have a specific question or do you want me
Well,
to throw it
knowing
out?
that, I mean, hearing your response, I'll rephrase. Like, in your experience of like blockchain being used for supply chain, what were some of the earliest use cases that you were like, that's pretty interesting and hopeful? Can you give us some examples for people who only suspect that NFTs are something other than art? So what would that look like?
Yeah. So right now, I mean, when we don't have transparent supply chains, you have a lot of like hidden vendor contracts. There's things that can happen from point A to point Z that there's like price markups that can happen. There can be corrupt business dealings happening. One thing that we don't think about here in the States, but overseas, people literally have to, carry duffel bags of money around. If you're a cocoa bean farmer and you're exchanging your product for something else, I mean, you're carrying a bag of money around and you're now a target. Somebody could want to rob you on your way back to your house or something like that. Crypto solves a lot of that when you're able to have it on your mobile phone and secured. I mean, that's one big solution. But when I told you that I started the Alpha Drop podcast with my friend Rachel, that's all we were about. It was really about like sourcing transparency. Like I want to be able to verify that this product came from the farm you said it came from, that it was grown the way you said it was grown, that it was, compliant with fair trade procedures and ethical standards and those types of things. So I think what we'll start to see is, I was always a really big fan of the Environmental Working Group. How can these third parties that verify certain things are taking place along our supply chains, how can they integrate the standards that they've set over these last couple decades and generations and actually bake these right into compliance all along the supply chain?
I mean, that feels like, I hear that, and that's interesting. A parallel pops into my mind about real estate. And when you hypothesize a supply chain solution or a real estate solution, say, for example, title transfer or something like that, you start thinking about it, you're like, man, this would solve this and this would solve this. But then when you actually start breaking down the amount of infrastructure that has to be rebuilt on the blockchain, it almost becomes infeasible. Why are you smirking? She's smirking. So like I'm sure you were facing this in the early days. Do these projects just get dropped when they realize the amount of investment and development, like invention of new code that has to happen? Like, what were some of these obstacles and how were people overcoming them?
So probably one of the oldest ones that is still going really well is Everledger. So they were the first people putting diamonds on the blockchain and certifying that they were like non-conflict areas and things like that. And so I think the supply chain solutions, they're not necessarily very like hard to implement now. The interesting part, and the reason I smirked, there was one project we had that everybody was gung-ho. They were like, oh my gosh, blockchain solves everything. But when they learned how transparent it actually is and how accountable everyone actually is, you have to go through this funny transition period of admitting, how often you've been fudging numbers and, well, my quarterly reports do. So we'll just tuck this in with this. And you can't do that with blockchain. And I think people, are you really going to be the person on the bleeding edge that holds yourself to a transparency standard that nobody else is holding themselves to right now? And does that make you less competitive? So right now, I believe in the future, the blockchain will be the standard. So everyone will be there. But right now you do have to make that pro and cons list of whether it's worth it for you to put the investment in right now. And then, like I said, somehow admit to everybody what's been going on up until this point and why you're even changing it. And
trustlessness gets goofy because like a true trustless system, let's just say a pure peer-to-peer smart contract generally makes sense in DeFi. But when you talk about supply chain, it overlaps IRL. Someone weighing a 10-pound bag of cocoa beans or cacao beans or whatever and setting it there, someone has to manually make sure that either the scale is connected with the Internet of Things and it talks to the blockchain, or someone doesn't have their big toe on the scale, like throwing the thing off. So like that's the thing that it only breaks my heart from this regard, is I don't know if I'll be able to see the ingenuity come to pass in my own lifetime at how intricate some of these supply chains, or when I think about real estate investment, all the different nuances to happen. I'm like, that would be awesome to see, but like, it's vast, man. Do you think there's enough builders in
I
this?
think automation is moving faster than what we need builders for necessarily. I mean, like one of my favorite examples is we can use facial recognition to log animals on the blockchain now. So like we can know exactly, they put like a camera at the watering station. So each pig, each cow, and that essentially gets hooked to an NFT. And then that NFT travels along the supply, the manufacturer, the processor, whatever happens. So you think of a situation like a food recall, instead of having to recall mass quantities of something, between all these dates and all that food gets thrown out, like, exactly what got processed with what. So, I mean, you can really start to identify this specifically what you need to recall.
Oh, like this one cow that got processed actually did not end up all over the country. It actually ended up in a small grocer in his one batch in that one place. That's nuts. Saul says, hey, have to run. Great show. Great listening. Talk soon. I never thought about that. Now, that's brilliant. Now, how often with My Crypto Advisor are you encountering cool projects like this?
I mean, it's been more recent in like the last year. Prior to this, we are a Web3 consultancy that helps we onboard, educate, and really help people with like on-chain skills. And really it's been difficult working on projects because I mean, people have big ideas and they want to do things, but this is revolutionary technology. I mean, like you just mentioned, it's a lot of, and even right now, the craziest thing with the NFT boom was people were raising their own money to implement their own technology. And like, then you were just going broke. I mean, you were going broke in the process. So, I mean, we don't see these huge, injections of investment coming in to push this along right now.
Man. So, and I didn't mean to make this interviewy, guys, but I'm so curious about this experience. Or your experience, Jacki. It's nuts. Where are you hopeful within Web3 and crypto at large? What gives you the most excitement?
I think really just helping people be accountable for themselves. I'm like a self-custody evangelist for that reason. Because I think people have the opportunity, even DeFi. Like I didn't grow up in a house where my parents, were like, oh, we got to go talk to the advisor on Friday and we're going to invest in real estate. Like that wasn't my life, growing up. And learning crypto gave me instant access to learning terms that I had never heard before, and it's 24/7. You can do it on your own time. Like, I just think the ability for people to engage with their assets in a more direct way now, it's just going to blow the world open for people who want to take that on.
Nuts. So, okay. So you can't talk to me about carbon credits because, so I want to hear all about that offline then. But maybe then going back to women in tech a little bit, I think what's really been healthy for me is hearing the contrast. Can you give us any, maybe even anonymized examples of encounters you've had when we talked in Bryant Park, you got passionate quick and I thought, did she just get profiled somewhere because she's passionate?
Me too. I felt like on the way over, somebody said something and she came in hot.
Because honestly, NLC, the reason it came up is she had like within the last day or so an experience that she shared with us that was just like someone literally asked, who are you here with? And she's like, I'm literally here for this project she's on, Stay 365. Like, are you still seeing that? Are you seeing a trend improve? Are you still frustrated? I mean, aside from the representation at this event, there was still some bro-y moments, like the D-Gods thing and all that stuff was still very bro-y, I feel like. So what are some early experiences and are you seeing an improvement at all?
It's interesting. When I left corporate in 2019, I
Yeah.
got really steeped into like women's communities and really more like holistic living and natural living and like learning about herbs and what I'm supposed to eat and what I'm not supposed to eat and like that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And technology seems to always have a solution for these things. But I don't know that that's what women are actually asking for. Like sometimes I feel like the conversation is, it's just like I think women feel frustrated a lot of times because we just literally don't feel heard about the aid and the help we're seeking to see built. And instead we're getting solutions that like, we're just like, yeah, that's not the problem though. Or that's not like, I mean, even like, I remember I went on a podcast about DAOs like really early on before many people were talking about DAOs. And the guy that was interviewing me, he just couldn't separate finance from a decentralized autonomous organization. And I was really focused on governance and like, you can have people voting and when everything has to come down to like money or ROIs, and I get it, that's what makes the world go round. But it almost just feels like we have to move so fast to like come up with a solution, and we're not like taking time to really listen to people's frustrations and what they find needs to be fixed right now.
So you're talking not just about women. You're literally talking about what I would generalize as the feminine aesthetic. And I think you mentioned something along these lines when we were sitting at the park. And we were talking about Wonderland Time, and you said, I wonder if these would have crashed if they didn't have a feminine touch. Right? Is that kind of what you're getting at? Like the insight of of women and the female gender, of making different observations in the space? Is that what you're getting at?
I mean, I guess, and again, these are like broad generalizations, but
Please.
like when you think of like women running a household, like a lot of times it's like all these invisible things, whether it's like tracking the calendar or making sure, this one's got that, or, and men do this too. So I'm not like,
Yeah.
But I think it is those things like it's almost like our lived experiences sometimes don't get I don't know, because we don't have it on a spreadsheet or we don't have it like some hard data to look at. A lot of times it just gets kind of like shooed or set aside. And I think women generally just have different conversations than men. So like, it's different for me to sit in a room with 4 guys and have a discussion. It's going to be a lot different than when I sit in a room with 4 women and have a discussion. So, and then
did you have an experience like that at NFTNYC? Like where it was just you and several other women having a conversation?
Actually, no, I don't know. No, that didn't happen at all.
Maybe that's its own indicator.
It was a different conference for me.
That's all right. So like, are there projects that might represent more of what you think is female influenced, that might be female run, might not be female run, but answers problems that aren't just like ROI and data and building and growth for growth's sake? What projects are you looking at that you're like, that's cool?
There was one that was there. What was it? The Alpha Girl Club or something like that. But they were doing like a meditation and breath work little session, and I participated in that. I mean, things like that, healthy initiatives. Like they had a POAP after you attended that, so you got the POAP for it. I think things that are generally, and even back to your conversation about like if Wonderland Time had this, that's the thing. Like women care about the community, like what's going to happen to these people and how do we take care of them? And I think more of that when especially in the early days of crypto, it was just sort of this idea of like, well, if you get wrecked, that's on you, and like loser, and like, and I was on the other.
You do bro very well. You do bro very well.
Well,
Jackie, I feel like that's
like
still the case.
Long enough in corporate, so.
What'd you say, Jarrett?
Jackie, I was gonna say, I feel like that's still the case. I mean, I think the base of crypto is self-sovereignty, as you were talking about, self-custody, so you have to be responsible for your own stuff. Like the one thing I really like about Web3 is I don't see a lot of victimhood, right? I don't see a lot of, oh, this happened to me. It's like, dude, no one forced your hand to buy that NFT. You got caught up in it. You bought that NFT. Now, there are special moments where someone gets social engineered and then their wallet gets drained. that is where I have total empathy and compassion. But if someone gets wrecked because they buy some crap crypto project and it goes to zero, it's like, did you talk to anybody about this? Did you, and I have a good buddy, and if he's listening, he can totally tell me, send whatever he wants on WhatsApp. But I've been talking to him since 2017 about getting into crypto. And that whole time he was kind of skeptical, kind of on the fence. Great points. He was, we're talking about new technology. And then he dumped a bunch of money into something. And the second he did, I was like, dude, you just threw your money away. It's gone. It's gone. That is a Ponzi scheme. Like, that is actually a Ponzi scheme, So I actually do think that that's always going to stay with crypto, but I kind of like that. And I think when it comes to the financial world, I think it's a really important thing for people to feel in control of their destiny, of like where they want to go. Because clearly now, if you're not in crypto, I would be worried. If you had no crypto exposure, I think that would be stressful because you can't trust the banks, right? Because they may not bail you out. Like, that just may not happen. Holding fiat, we know, as a long-term plan is not going to go well. And so I actually think that that's not going to go away. It may calm down a little bit because enough people have trauma of like losing. Like, I lost a lot of money in Wonderland. So I'm never going to, I just tell people just stay away from DeFi. That's my new thing. I'm
going to
like,
airdrop you something when we start making it in the community, make you flush on Wonderland for following my YouTube channel.
Yeah, Jacki, do you know that? The reason why I got in Wonderland is because I was on YouTube and I saw this dude who was like super energetic talking about it, and he was very intelligent, and it ended up being Grant. So that's how Grant and I actually met. But I don't know. I feel like that will always be there, but maybe enough people will have lost money as I have, where I'm not going to like get mad at anyone anymore, but I don't have time for victimhood. I don't have time of this happened to me, woe is me, because I don't know. I feel like there's a lot less. And I was thinking about this earlier when I was like creating that podcast that went today, but I think there's a lot less excuses in Web3. Other kind of industries, I guess we could just say Web 2 if we want to pejoratively say that. People will just come up with excuses for why they don't get stuff done. Oh, this happened. Oh, this happened. Oh, this happened. Oh, I can't do that. A lot of like negative self-talk, and just not a lot of like opportunity for growth. Whereas I feel like maybe it's almost the opposite in Web3, where people feel like they're Superman or Superwoman or superhuman, where they can just do ridiculous things. And honestly, many of the conversations that I had with founders who were, one-off founders, or they're a part of a team of two and they're looking for VC and angel investing, it almost felt like Theranos with Elizabeth Holmes. Because if you look at Elizabeth Holmes through the lens of Steve Jobs, and this was like a really, really good thing if you watch the Hulu special on her, which is like a docuseries, like obviously it's fictional, but it's about real things that happened. It was like so Elizabeth Holmes loves Steve Jobs. Okay. That is who she looked up to. She just wanted to be Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs' entire attitude towards everything was, just because it hasn't happened before doesn't mean we can't get there. Yeah. And as long as we're in the process of getting there, then we're successful, right? And so as long as we're trying, then we're successful. And Elizabeth Holmes obviously took that to the extreme because it was never going to work. She was just praying that it would. But I do feel like in Web3, many of the people that I spoke with, they have ideas that are like half-cooked. They need a good amount of money, but they're also just like, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Like true gambles, honestly. And not that that's a bad thing, but it does give you a lot of like creativity, a lot of that like dream state energy, and overall positive vibes. And so the thing I'm interested when I think about NFTNYC, I'm like, really cool. Your NFT party was on the top of a roof. Just show me you're going to be next year. Like, show me you're going to be there next year. I'll be impressed by that. That to me is impressive. Who
are visionary leaders in this space in any corner, not just NFTs, that you guys listen to, that you gals listen to? Who has a really strong visionary voice in our space?
I think Jack Butcher. I'm obviously quasi-biased because I think he's great, but he has a really strong community. And so he has the ability to try things out that other people can't try out and maybe even fail, because his community is so strong that I just think that they're going to back him. They'll be like, okay, yeah, you messed up. Let's see what you do next time. And so for me, Jack Butcher, the stuff that he's done with NFT philanthropy, especially, he's helped raise probably about $500,000 for Feeding America, Doctors Without Borders, and CARE, which is really, really cool. He's also just the way that he's starting to play with his art and totally make it an inclusive thing. So similar to Crypto Novo. I would say Crypto Novo is somebody else. I finally was able to meet him at NFTNYC, and he's making a documentary about his entire journey being Crypto Novo, being someone who walks around as a PFP. I just think he's great. And I think that he's one of the few people I've seen on Twitter who his reach is far beyond his followers on Twitter. And normally it's the opposite. People have like 100,000 followers on Twitter and they have no IRL pull. They actually don't have any connections. They have no contacts. They just somehow happen to have that many because they've been on Twitter this long or it worked out. But he has like 22,000 followers. But for me, he's one of the leaders in the space because he is so connected. There's not one person at NFT NYC he doesn't know personally or hasn't worked with on a job. That was the impression I got, and especially now following him on Twitter. So for me, Jack Butcher, Crypto Novo, I'm going to think some more. Jackie, who for you?
Visionary though. Like I feel like a lot of
I
this
think
is
Crypto
derivative.
Novo is visionary, and I think Jack Butcher is visionary. I mean, Crypto Novo walks around in his PFP. He's going the distance. He's a full send. So yeah.
Jackie, what do you think? Anyone visionary?
I think for me, I've always been like, I'm gonna get some hate now, I think. But I've always been like a Cardano maxi. I love Charles Hoskinson,
Oh
like
God.
what he
I'm
puts
gonna
out. I
go.
watch
I'm
his
gonna go.
YouTube often. Well, he's a big supply chain person too, and using the tech and I think people like bought into Cardano expecting it to be, when Lambo, and like that's just not what he's trying to do. That's not what Cardano is about. And it's certainly a long-term hold for me, but even more than that, I watch Charles' videos. He regularly posts them. He's always been open and transparent about how Cardano's been building the developer community. Anytime. And George has this comment up right here that says lots of technology and passion in Web3, but generally low on business acumen.
Yes.
And I will say, I was a mentor for SCORE, it's an association for the Small Business Administration that helps people start and grow small businesses. And it was interesting even being involved with them and going through my own entrepreneurial journey. A lot of people just don't have access to the really dumb things that hold people back from participating in things. And a lot of times, we don't recognize our own privileges of just having access to the right people that can put you in the right direction. And, Jarrett, just to go back to one thing you were saying about, the self-sovereignty and all of that, I will say at my crypto advisor, all of last year, I don't know the exact percentage, but over half of the calls we got were people that were affected by scams. And a lot of times, it's people that are, and you just hear it on the phone, they're like, I have an MBA or I'm this, I'm a that, like, I shouldn't have got fooled by this. I was in a Telegram group and I trusted it. I didn't understand the technology. I didn't understand that giving someone my wallet address was giving them this. So, as much as like inside our own echo chamber, it's easy to be like, oh, you got wrecked or this, that, or the other. I've dealt with so many people personally, like crying at times, just that and it's almost like just the feeling of being violated, that like somebody promised you something and then just like did what they did or whatever. But anyways, that was a lot of words and
No.
And what I think you were saying, and to go back to that, when you said that, I think, if I may, Jackie, I think you were getting at the empathy component. And I think, Jarrett, you clinged on to an ethos of crypto, which I do agree with, zero victimhood. But I think, Jackie, what you were pointing out is, because we were still talking about the feminine gender component of, there's got to be like a deeper empathy here. And Jackie, you gave me the phrase mass education, and I really appreciate that. That really stuck with me. I think we still have a long road of mass education, because I still don't see anyone I would consider visionary. You called out Charles. I didn't think of Charles, so maybe I don't consider him visionary. But when you called it out, I'm like, well, Charles Hoskins, he's really had like a 10, 15-year story arc in his brain. He's always said that from day one. But there's very few others who are like, no, we're here for the mega long haul. And then even from a community component, I think what the NFT community has done is they have pioneered. I was even talking internally to our team about maybe even outlining a book called Community Marketing, because we know about freemium marketing, we know about paid, we know about organic, but the level of community-based, I think that is kind of revolutionary within the marketing umbrella, and how far someone will take community. So maybe there's vision. Maybe you could call. I hate to say this. I'm going to get hate from you guys on this. Frank D. Gods, to me, he's totally a college bro, but he still has done for a community component, which we should have been doing in Web 2 for a very long time. But I think we've devolved to Web 2 to just be bottom line driven. The thing I love about Web 3 is not even the tech. It's how we're addressing philosophically the idea of building a following or a community. And I think that that's really important, but I still see very few visionary people that are like, literally inventing the future. And like, they're talking about things I can't even get my head around. Everyone's talking about stuff that's pretty derivative, except maybe Charles with some of his protocols. I don't know.
I want to jump in, and there's a couple comments I want to latch onto, but I also want to say, so people don't think I have a cold dead heart, that if you get social engineered and you get scammed, I have total empathy. If you buy a shit coin and you think you're going to buy a Lambo, even though you can't drive stick, I don't care. Like, don't call me. I just don't care. So, and let's see. Owen Healy says, and we can go totally Cardano, because here's the thing about Cardano. I have a crypto guru who I'd really never talked to right now. We haven't touched base. He worked for VeChain for a long time, and he is someone who got into crypto super early, bought Bitcoin at like $50 and then sold it when it was like, I don't know, $1,000, and thought he stole everything, right? He will remain anonymous because he doesn't really like when I talk about him, but he to me is one of the people that whatever he says, I kind of just do, and it's always worked out. So he said early on, look, you can buy Cardano, but it's not really going to go anywhere because it's never really going to be bigger than Ethereum. Even if the tech is better, his point was the community is never going to be as big. And I always thought that was interesting. I still don't own any Cardano to this day, but I do see, obviously,
that's my bags, baby,
that in the next bull run, Cardano could do something. And so I want to call it Owen Healy's comment. He says, recommend everyone check out John Green's book about Cardano. I don't know about that. I'm going to definitely follow up with him about that. Yeah. And Brian has been saying, I've really been enjoying Charles Hoskinson's YouTube vlogs. He's a dude, I reckon. I have watched many videos of his, and one of the things I love about him is how real he is. He's real. Someone, and Grant touched on this on his live stream yesterday, is that like the thing about Web3 is, or maybe not Web3, maybe it's just the thing about creating your personality on the internet and then meeting people, is we're all pretty much who we are. You know, Grant said when he met me, I was basically who I am on the show. And when he met Aussie, he was basically exactly who he is on the show. You know, when I met Jacki, we had a couple conversations. She was exactly who she was, who she presented on the phone and, you know, in our calls. And I feel the same way about Charles. I feel like I could go sit down with him and have a coffee and a donut, and he's going to be spilling coffee all over his shirt and be like, oh, well, that's okay. You know, and like continue to move forward because that's just, he seems so genuine. You know, so I will say that's something that I find very endearing about him and kind of real, especially in a world where you have Do Kwon, who's going to lie to you, right? Who's going to get on a Twitter space and like laugh at other people who failed a month before he failed. SBF, who did the exact same thing. So it's always really tough to tell who's a charlatan in this space and who's not, because you want to believe their genuine connection when there is someone like Charles, who I absolutely believe is genuine. Yeah. And then the last thing I say before I pass, because I'd love for you guys actually to Cardano me for the next 7 minutes, is I think that Vitalik is a visionary. And I think that in 100 years, he'll be remembered like Tesla, because he took blockchain and basically said, how can we make this more dynamic? And I think that he's a visionary. I just don't think we think he's a visionary because he's so ubiquitous in our lives. But if someone comes into Web3 and then you explain what a smart contract is, you explain that you can create tokens, you explain that you can build on the blockchain of Ethereum, they'll be like, oh, that guy's super intelligent. You know, I didn't even know these things existed, but I think we're just so inundated, we don't see it. But I do think long-term Vitalik will be on a Tesla level for future generations.
I actually might disagree with you here. I think that there's a very big difference between visionary and genius.
Okay.
I think genius can deliver, and I would definitely give Vitalik a definite level of genius. You know, Hoskins went off on his own because he saw limitations in Ethereum, and I think that was his push. Maybe Jacki has better background on that. But he was working there. He was helping co-found the thing and said, no, I see some natural limitations here. And, you know, I joked, we're talking about sharding and the merge as if they're features when they're a bug that we're fixing. And people say, no, this was on the roadmap. It was on the roadmap how long? And maybe it was. If we if history really goes through and shows, no, this was truly on the roadmap, and we wanted to get a minimum viable product out there, get people building dApps. Everyone wants crypto kitties. Let's do something, right? I mean, just these early dApps. I don't know if you guys remember, the early dApps were a joke. I mean, but they were building the underlying tech. And if we find out that, all this was on the roadmap exactly this way, great, but it felt more like a patch to a bug, which is, I guess, partly its own genius, that it's a programmable solution that we can just hack and fix. But I do think that there's genius there. I hesitate to give the word visionary because I think visionary has a people moving component. I think visionary inspires the distortion bubble. We talk about Steve Jobs, it's both. He saw it, and his technical acumen was moderate at best. Mm-hmm. But his ability to see the future, know it well enough to see the future, and then create not only his own distortion bubble, but a societal wide distortion bubble. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's kind of what I'm kind of hoping for within the crypto space to a point, because without vision, the people perish, right? That's this, you may or may not know this, Jarrett, that's like a scripture. Mm-hmm. And there's another interpretation of it. Without vision, the people cast off restraint. And the idea behind the scripture is that without a very cohesive vision, people go all over the place. Mm. Dude, I'm watching NFTNYC and people are doing, and it's cool and it's fun, but they're doing like Easter egg hunts under the bull in Wall Street. And I'm like, that's cool. That's super fun. We're having intelligent conversations, but everyone's all over the place. And I wanted to see this energy, this cohesive energy of we are moving this thing forward. And I enjoyed it very much. I had a great time. I got to meet you both in person, but there was that nag in the back of my mind. I'm like, it's still not visionary enough. The whole industry. I don't know, Jackie, you have a thought there?
There's one project I'd love to call out. It's More Women in Crypto. And they're doing some really, I think I can talk about this because their founder talked about it on Twitter Spaces. But I mean, they're taking in plastic, and they have this system that turns it into a type of fuel. And the fuel can boot the all sorts of energy in the it's a Central America project. I can't remember exactly where they're located, but I think those are the larger conversations that are happening. And sometimes I hesitate to talk about these things because when my co-founder Alex at my crypto advisor, when we got into this, you couldn't even say the word central banks. You couldn't say central banks. You couldn't talk about certain things. And so, Grant, to your point, when you talk about visionaries, sometimes even to me, it still feels like you have to play things close to the vest, because there's a lot of power in all of the things we're talking about. There's a lot of different directions this technology can take people. And it's why I do focus on education. It's why I do focus on empowering people with self-custody and on-chain skills, so that they have a voice in how this goes. I'm sure Steve Jobs understood what you can do, what could happen to society. I mean, now look at us. We can't leave our houses without our phones. We can't go for a hike without our phones. And, some of us do, but most of us don't. And I think we're at that same moment here is how much of my life, to me, when we want to solve problems, I always put humans first, even in something like climate change. People want to fix climate problems, but I think we have an opportunity to enlighten people about behaviors right now that subsequently have, ripple effects on things like the environment. And maybe this is the same problem history has always had. This is how we be acting.
how we be acting. And when you're talking about, when you bring up the central bank example, you mean uniquely, this industry is touching on what matters to a lot of people, which is their pocketbooks, which by proxy is their power. When we talk about DAOs or I call it re-centralization playfully, because I really don't think people want decentralization, total anarchy. They want to have power again, so they want it re-centralized, at least for them, on them, right? But what you're getting at is this if I understand you correctly, this is touching on enough things that the power brokers, who we used to not be able to say the Rockefellers in public or central bank, just because it felt weird and just like accept your lot in life, and that's cool. But this technology can actually free people. So let's keep it simple. Let's onboard them with the actual tools. I mean, getting onboarded with MetaMask alone could set some people free pretty quickly. Is that kind of where you're going? Like you can't just roll out and say, "Hey, this is the vision," because if you actually go there, it's
People
more
have to sit
revolutionary.
in a room by themselves. I mean, you guys know people that got into crypto, went down the rabbit hole, and were like missing for like 3 months because they were like, I didn't know the world worked like this. I didn't, I mean, I think it's easy for us to forget that there's just normal people that go to work every day, and, they come home and they're dabbling, and little by little, like, things are unraveling, and it's all of a sudden, and and I think it can be really difficult to transition into this, and to even just admit certain things are certain ways, and, have to get past those things. And
The cognitive dissonance.
Grant, I always call it ever organizing. We're decentralized, but ever organizing.
I like that. I do like that. And I think, oh man, you just said something. It's the cognitive dissonance. Like, we have to remember that people live paycheck to paycheck. Meanwhile, we're telling them we can take them to the moon with a line of code. And they're like, what is the quote I've been touting around? Mars is for quitters. Like we're so far into the memes of this thing that people are like, what are you even talking about? I just want my DoorDash to drop me a hot dog this afternoon. If we could just like applaud that. I hear that. And I guess that's what I mean by visionary. What I loved about Steve Jobs, it was jargonless. Imagine a world where you carry 10,000 songs right here. And maybe 10 minutes later, Sony Music was like, oh shit, but he already had the device in hand. I hear what you're saying. I still think that there needs to be visionary leadership that speaks to pain that even the average Joe. Hey, you ever get afraid of a banking collapse and just want to know that you're always in control of your money? Yeah.
Dude, Grant, you sound like you're going to be on like late night TV scamming.
And this little device
with
right
that.
here.
You ever want to make
10,000
sure your pension's going to be
Satoshis.
okay? My name's Grant Lakeland Nadu. Come on down. I'm gonna get
I just
you some
went back.
Bitcoin.
If I was, this was before I quit corporate, and I heard that, like, do I ever get afraid that the bank's going to collapse? No, but should I? Like, I don't even know I should be worrying about that.
Grant's infomercial is going to cause heart attacks all across Florida.
Oh my God.
Austin,
Well,
welcome
Aussie,
back also to the chat.
You just made it back in time to give us your shout out and go away.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
So we're at the hour mark. We're at the hour mark. Jarrett, what's your shout out, bro?
My shout out is to all those people like my boy Austin that are just fighting from Web 2 to spend more time in Web 3. That's my shout out.
Aussie, welcome back. I'm sure you had time to think. What's your shout out, man?
I'm going to shout out all of the great people we met at our event and at our meetup. They were incredible. They had their own incredible projects, businesses that they were working on, and amazing insights. So shout out to them.
Yeah, man. Jacki, you've had an hour now. Who do you shout out, or what do you shout out? What projects do you want to holler at?
I'm going to shout out Brian Naughton, who was on your show and who introduced me to you guys. He's amazing. Follow him on LinkedIn. He has a Substack account now, and his writing is just phenomenal, and it will help all the people that Grant was trying to market to about banks collapsing.
If you want terror, hang out longer. If you want love and hope, visit Brian's Substack.
Yes.
I assume Grant's the storefront will actually sell rugs,
No, like an actual hook for the rug.
Hooks and rugs, Grant.
And knee
Grant
pads
Sparks.
for when you get rug pulled. Like, it's picks and axes, friends. Picks and axes. I'm gonna shout out y'all. I'm gonna shout out the big brains that we met, and I'm thinking specifically, first and foremost, of Jacki. She was one of the first people I literally landed, and I was still skies out, thighs out. When I landed and met up with these guys to hang out, I was still in my travel gear, and it was such an intelligent conversation. And I know that we could have fun doing scavenger hunts and parties late at night, but I personally thrive on the intellectualism that tends to orbit some of this. So my shout out is Ezra Igor. This is our man Ezra. Hold on.
Whoa, no
Ezra.
way.
Ezra, right here,
On
buddy.
the chat. On the
Boom.
chat.
Welcome to the show, man. So my shout out is to anyone who is gleefully engaging intellectualism in this space, because as George said just a moment ago, we didn't call it out, language matters, and I think language leads, and I think we'll get there. Jarrett, take us home, brother.
Yeah, go ahead and follow us on YouTube. Well, we're kind of in a transition on YouTube. But
Just follow us.
just find us on YouTube and follow us. But if you want to get in touch with us, DMs are open on Twitter, and you can find us on LinkedIn as well at Not Crypto
Yeah.
Bros. So we're here every Tuesday at 3:30 Eastern time. We'll see you next week. Thanks.